You know that feeling when life seems to be humming along nicely,
Yeah, things are going smoothly.
and then bam, something shifts. Could be work, maybe a relationship takes a weird turn, or it's just, one of those days where nothing seems to go right.
We've all been there, absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, with
Yeah.
all this constant change, is like lasting happiness even really achievable?
Well, that's exactly the big question we're tackling in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're digging into the nature of happiness, especially when life keeps throwing curveballs.
Okay.
We're drawing mainly from a really insightful Thai text. Hiro kama kanan kai fan lom for Faisal visa lo.
Which translates to something like being happy in every change.
Precisely. And we're also bringing in perspectives from Kanokwan Silpsuk and Ototaki Hirotada, who have some powerful things to say on this.
Got it. So our goal here for you listening isn't about finding some magical, always-on happiness switch. That's probably not realistic.
No, definitely not.
It's more about getting some practical tools, some real insights for how to navigate all this change and actually cultivate a genuine sense of well-being, whatever's going on.
Finding a new way to react, essentially. Moving beyond just wishing things were different.
Right. So where do we start?
Well, the core idea, and it might sound a bit surprising at first, is that the kind of permanent happiness we often chase, it doesn't really exist in the world in the way we think.
Okay, unpack that a bit. You mean the feeling itself?
Kind of. Luang for Faisal Visalo's text suggests that what we usually label as happiness is often just the temporary feeling of relief when some kind of suffering stops, or when we get something we wanted.
Ah, okay, like you've been wanting that new gadget, you finally get it, and there's that rush.
Exactly. That rush of pleasure. The desire is met.
Uh-huh.
Relief. But how long does that really last?
Not long, usually. Before you know it, you want something else, or the novelty just wears off.
Precisely. It's a cycle, isn't it? Wanting, getting temporary satisfaction, then wanting again, which in a way sets up the next round of potential suffering if we don't get it.
And the text also talks about that background hum of anxiety, right? The fear of losing the good things we do have.
Yes, that constant worry that the good times won't stick around, because fundamentally, everything is impermanent.
That's a tough one to sit with sometime.
It is. The text really emphasizes this. Everything arises, it exists for a while, and then it fades. Objects, jobs, situations, even the people we love.
We don't like thinking about that much, especially, mortality.
No, we tend to push it away.
Yeah.
But acknowledging this impermanence is actually key. Think about your own experiences. How much is your happiness tied to things staying the same? And how much anxiety creeps in when you sense change coming?
Yeah, that definitely resonates. Resisting that change seems to be a big source of the problem then.
That's exactly it. Holding on too tight when the nature of things is to change. That resistance, that clinging, is where a lot of the pain comes from.
Yeah.
And this naturally leads us to the idea of, acceptance.
Acceptance. Now, does that just mean giving up? Like, oh, well, can't do anything about it?
Not at all. That's a really important distinction the text makes. It's not about passive resignation. True happiness, or maybe peace is a better word here, comes from accepting things as they actually are, acknowledging the natural flow.
Okay.
Trying to force everything to fit our desires is described as like trying to stop a river from flowing. It's just futile.
You can yell at the river, but it's going to keep going. Makes sense. So this acceptance comes after you've done what you reasonably can.
Exactly. It's about putting in your best effort, acting wisely, doing your part, but then crucially letting go of your attachment to a specific outcome you can't fully control.
Okay.
There's a great little story in the Thai text that illustrates this perfectly. A young girl is on a train, struggling with heavy luggage. Meanwhile, a couple of boys who could have helped just went off to watch TV. Someone asked her later, "Weren't you angry at them?"
And what did she say?
She said something like, "Carrying the bags was tiring enough. Being angry at the boys, too, that would just be double tiredness."
Wow. Double tiredness. I like that. That really shifts the perspective.
Doesn't it? It frames our reaction as a choice. We can pile frustration on top of an already difficult task, or we can accept the part. We can't change the boy's behavior and just focus on getting the job done without the extra emotional weight.
Which brings us right to another massive point from the text. It's not so much what happens, but our reaction to what happens that determines our happiness or suffering.
Yes, this is absolutely central. And this is where people like Kanakwan Silpsuk and Ototaki Hirotada offer such powerful living examples.
They've both faced pretty significant physical challenges, haven't they?
Immense challenges. Kanakwan deals with thalassemia, Otatake was born without limbs, yet their outlook is just incredible.
It really forces you to question what dictates our actual experience of life. Canuck one said something like, what happens to us isn't the main thing.
Yes, she said. It's not important what we are or what happens to our lives, but what's important is how we think about it when it happens.
Powerful. And Otutik.
His perspective is similar. I was born disabled, but I am happy and have fun every day. It just underscores this incredible internal capacity we have.
They actively choose happiness despite circumstances many would see as overwhelmingly negative.
That's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
And there's another simple, everyday example in the text, the mail carrier.
Oh, yeah, the one singing on a scorching hot day.
That's him. Someone asked how he could possibly be cheerful in that heat. And his answer was perfect. He said, if the world is hot, but our heart is cool, it is cool.
Love that. He couldn't change the temperature outside.
But he could manage his internal thermostat, so to speak. Getting annoyed by the heat, as the text points out, is actually an active choice. We choose to let the external discomfort create internal suffering.
We often don't see it as a choice, though, do we? It feels automatic.
It does. But realizing we do have that freedom to choose, our response is liberating. So, okay, if our reaction is key, how do we actually manage that response when change hits, especially unwanted change?
Right, the practical side. The text offers some concrete strategies, doesn't it? 4 main ones.
Yes, 4 key approaches. The first one is basically accepting the reality of what has happened.
Okay, back to acceptance, but focusing on things that have already occurred.
Exactly. Resisting what's already done and dusted just fuels more suffering. Think about complaining, self-pity, replaying things over and over.
It just drains your energy.
Completely.
Yeah.
We get stuck in that this shouldn't have happened or why me mindset, that feeling of unfairness.
Which is understandable, but maybe not helpful.
According to the text, it actively hinders us. Holding on to the idea that reality should be different just keeps us locked in pain. Remember the train girl?
Yeah, avoiding the double tiredness.
She accepted the boys weren't helping. That was the reality of the moment and focused on her task. Acceptance isn't being happy about what happened. It's acknowledging it has happened so you can move forward. It's the starting point.
Okay, so accept reality first. What's number 2?
Number 2 is making the best of the present moment.
So once you've stopped fighting the past,
you can actually engage with now. The text points out how often we're mentally living somewhere else, either regretting the past or worrying anxiously about the future.
Guilty as charged. It's easy to get lost in if-onlys or what-ifs.
Very easy. But neither the past nor the future is where we have any actual power to act. Only the present moment offers that. So the strategy is to bring your focus here to now and do what you can right now.
There's that mountain climbing analogy you mentioned earlier from Bruce Kirby.
Yes, that's a great illustration. He said looking at the huge summit from the base can feel overwhelming, impossible even.
I can imagine.
But the way to climb it is to focus just on the very next step. Then the next one. Keep your attention on what's immediately in front of you.
And apply that to life's challenges. Focus on the immediate step you can take right now, rather than getting paralyzed by the whole huge problem.
Precisely. It keeps you moving and prevents that feeling of being overwhelmed. Okay, strategy number 3. Looking at the positive.
Now, this one can sometimes feel a bit forced, maybe, like you're supposed to pretend things are great when they're not.
That's a common reaction. But the text is careful to clarify. It's not about wearing rose-tinted glasses or denying difficulties.
So what is it about then?
It's about intentionally noticing the good things that still exist, even amidst the hardship. What can you still do? What resources do you still have? What positive aspects might, perhaps surprisingly, arise from the difficult situation itself?
Okay, finding the silver lining, but in a grounded way.
Exactly. Think about Kanakwan Silpsuk again. Despite her illness, she focuses on the joy her senses still bring her. Seeing beauty, smelling flowers, tasting food.
Things we often take for granted.
Totally. Or her sister, Jarunwan, who has brittle bones. She finds positives even in her frequent fractures, seeing them as chances to rest, read, connect with nature.
That's quite a mindset shift.
Isn't it? And remember, Chao Takwan, lost a leg to cancer, calls his poetry book, I Still Have One Leg. It's that focus on what remains.
Instead of what's lost.
Right. The text even mentions cancer patients who, looking back, felt their illness led to deeper meaning, stronger relationships, even a strange sense of gratitude, things they wouldn't trade.
Wow. So it boils down to that idea, no matter how bad things seem.
It's always good, at least it's not worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to actively counter the mind's tendency to focus only on the negative.
It trains you to look for the good that's still there. Okay, that makes sense. And the final strategy.
The fourth one brings it all inward. Being mindful and knowing oneself.
So self-awareness, understanding our own reactions.
Exactly. The text observes that when unwanted change happens, our first instinct is often to blame something external or look for an outside fix.
Pointing fingers, yeah.
And we often do this without really checking in with what's happening inside us. Are we letting anger take over? Fear? Resentment? We forget we have a choice there.
We just get swept away by the emotion.
We do. And in doing so, the text argues, we often actively choose suffering. We let the external event completely dictate our internal state.
Okay, so how does mindfulness help?
Mindfulness, that practice of just observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment, creates a crucial bit of space between the event and your reaction.
Like a pause button?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And in that space, wisdom can arise.
Yeah.
You can start to see things more clearly, maybe even find the good aspects we just talked about. Even in a bad situation, you detach a little from the raw emotion.
So mindfulness and self-awareness, they lead to a different kind of freedom.
That's the idea. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom in how you relate to difficulty. Freedom to choose your inner state rather than being a puppet of external circumstances.
Building resilience from the inside out.
Exactly. Instead of demanding the world change to suit us, which is often impossible, we cultivate the inner resources to navigate the world as it is with more peace and balance.
Okay. So wrapping this deep dive up, the message from being happy in every change and these other perspectives seems to be that happiness, or maybe better put, well-being, isn't about wishing change away.
No, because change is inevitable.
Right. It's more about developing the skills to meet that change. It's a choice rooted in accepting reality.
Focusing on the present moment you can actually influence.
Actively looking for the positive aspects, even small ones.
And cultivating that mindful self-awareness of your own internal reactions.
Because ultimately, it's our response to life's ups and downs that really shapes our experience.
Absolutely. Which leads to a good point of reflection for you listening. Think about an area of unwanted change in your own life right now, or one you faced recently.
Okay.
Considering these 4 strategies, acceptance, present focus, finding the positive, mindfulness, could one of them offer you a slightly different way to look at it, or a new step forward?
And perhaps the final thought to leave you with is this. What if the greatest freedom we truly possess isn't the power to change our external circumstances? Because often we can't, but the power to choose our internal response to those circumstances.